Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today is a special solo episode where I'm going to talk to you guys about the 5 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. So this is something that just kind of came about. Wanted to share this with you guys and hope that it's helpful. I think you'll like it. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and try to join us for MSL Talk Live, which is once a month. It's typically in the beginning of the month. It's on the LinkedIn platform. It's usually on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, but definitely follow on LinkedIn so you can see the announcements on exactly when they are. And we hope you can join us. And thank you, as always, for your support of this show. Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Okay, once again, welcome and thank you for joining me for this special solo episode. I was actually compelled to have this conversation because I ran into somebody recently. I just got back from the American Society of Hematology conference and met a bunch of people, had a bunch of great conversations, and I was talking to somebody, and this topic keeps actually coming up, and it's about imposter syndrome. And so having this conversation with this one dude, awesome guy, and he was like, I don't know, Tom. He goes, lately, some days I wake up and I'm like, man, why do I stink so much? And, it kind of resonated with me in the sense that I think, number one, we all do that. All of us, every single one of us, we were our own worst critic and our own worst enemy sometimes. And I thought, you know what, I've talked about this before. This is something that I just talked to my coaching program about, and I've had a lot of conversations recently about this. So I wanted to bring this topic to this podcast. It'll be quick. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but I do want to share the 5 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. But before I get into that, let me give you the definition, at least, of what I was able to find of what imposter syndrome is, just so you guys know if you're not familiar. So imposter syndrome, I found, is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So in a nutshell, anytime you doubt yourself, you doubt where you are in life and why you're there, or you doubt your ability, you are struggling with imposter syndrome. That's pretty much what it is. So just look at it as it's just a fancy word for doubt. So anytime you doubt yourself, you wake up and there's self-doubt, and you start to second guess yourself or your abilities, that's basically a form of imposter syndrome. And I want to share a personal story with you guys. So when I first started my business a million years ago, now it was actually like over 20 years ago. And for those of you that don't know what I do for a living, I'm not just a podcaster. I own and run an executive search firm. So I'm basically a recruiter, a headhunter, specifically for the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. And many years ago, I went to and exhibited at my first conference. So, which was kind of a big step for me because at the time, I think I had one employee. We had just started out. I had never done that before. And it was at the time a big investment for me. I think it was like $5,000, which probably costs a little more than that with travel and whatever else. But let's call it 5,000, which might as well have been 50,000. Like that was huge for me back then. And it was in Philadelphia, and I show up and I am completely unprepared in the sense that I have no booth, no display, no fancy marketing program system departments that are helping me get ready for this. I literally, on a whim, went to this conference, got a booth, an exhibit space or whatever, but had nothing more than literally a sign that I had made up at like, I don't know if it was like, Staples or Kinko's or like Signorama or something. So literally there was no tablecloth, no tchotchkes or giveaways. It was just me and this sign, which when I got there and I saw the magnitude of all of the other like there were competitors of mine that were much bigger than me that were there, all these other companies, tech companies, and companies in the pharmaceutical space as vendors that had these really fancy, nice booths with LED lights and all this other stuff. And here I am with my sign. Totally embarrassed, totally outmanned, outmatched, but I was there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the best of this, see what happens. Well, it was a disaster. In my mind, it was a disaster. I just looked around and it felt like everybody else was getting attention, and all the other, competitors and other people that were there were worthy of being there. And I was just embarrassed of me and my stupid little sign. Well, as I'm wallowing in my own self-loathing and looking around and envying everybody else that's doing their thing and sitting there saying to myself, well, you're not good enough. You should never come here. You stink, fold up, go home. The conference pretty much was about to wrap up. It was like almost done. Everybody was like literally getting ready to wrap up their booths. I was just going to grab my stupid sign and leave. This woman walks up to the booth, walks right up to me, looked at me like as if she knew me. And she said, "Oh, I recognize the name of your company." She's like, I've actually spoken to Bob. Now, Bob's my one employee. And long story short, this woman, Jennifer, at the 11th hour, at the very, very end of that conference, came up and had a conversation and said that she was going to be building out a team soon, and she was going to consider having us do the recruiting for her to build out this team. So I get her business card, she takes mine, and she leaves. We go our separate ways. So fast forward, I'm in the car on my way home from this conference, and I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, "How'd it go?" She's like all excited. I'm like, "It was the biggest waste of my time and my money. I'm an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. I stink. I can't compete with these people. What am I doing? I don't even know what I'm doing." And just on and on, just beating myself up. And she just kind of sat there. My wife, by the way, is like, she's my biggest fan. This woman has picked me up off the mat more than I can say I've needed to be picked up off the mat, and has been my biggest supporter. And so she listens to me talk about how much I stink and listening to this whole imposter syndrome rant. And then finally, she just lets me go. And then she said, "Tell me one positive thing that happened when you were there." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, you know what? Like that was brilliant." And I didn't expect it, but I said, "Well," at the very end, this woman came up to me and gave me her card and said she might be building out a team and might want to use my services, and that might be something. She said, "Well, let's just focus on that. Maybe that's why you were meant to be there. Maybe that was the whole purpose for you being there." So guys, fast forward, I'm not making this up. Fast forward, I did build her team. I actually built several teams for that person. I still keep in touch with her to this day. She's been one of my greatest clients. I've actually placed her in her current role, and we've become colleagues, friends, clients. And from that $5,000 investment, I can't tell you the return that I got off of that. So moral of the story, all of that self-loathing, all of that imposter syndrome, all of the misery I put myself through was for absolutely nothing. That whole entire story I told myself was a bunch of lies, and it was just a bunch of untruths that I was telling myself because I was struggling with imposter syndrome, because I was looking around at everybody else and I was judging myself based upon everything else that I saw. So I'm bringing this story to you guys, and I'm bringing this topic to you guys because there's a lot of people that I talk to now that are going through a difficult time. Maybe you're going through a layoff. Maybe the company that you're working for was just acquired and you're not sure what's going to happen. Or maybe you had a bad year. Maybe this year, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're in some line of work where this year was down and it wasn't what you didn't hit your goals, it wasn't what you expected, and you're just getting affected by the economy or whatever else. Well, we all have the tendency to want to beat ourselves up and say, okay, I stink. And it's all me, and it's all because of me. And that piece is what I want to talk about today. That piece is what I want to change. And guys, I'm coming to you, talking to you about this because I obviously have had a history of doing this, and I still do it. I still am way too hard on myself. Doesn't matter how much I've accomplished and what I have going on. We have this tendency to go to the negative sometimes and beat ourselves up. So we're going to talk about how to get over that. So let's look at what I'm going to call the 5 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. And the very first thing, number one, the very first thing you need to do is you need to give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. You have to understand that everybody does this. Everybody second guesses themselves sometimes. Everybody doubts themselves sometimes. And I'm telling you this because over the course of the past, 5 to 10 years, I have had the opportunity of meeting some of the most successful business people, entrepreneurs. I just have been in situations where I've had opportunities to meet people that were very successful, some very, very wealthy. We're talking, I've met billionaires, and everybody goes through this. Everybody, doesn't matter how successful you are, doesn't matter how much money you have. Everybody experiences this. And the most important thing is to not let it get a hold of you and not make it a pattern. So the very first thing you need to do is give yourself a break. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to maybe sometimes self-reflect. But if you're going to beat yourself up every single day, you're going to go into a downward spiral, and this is going to get worse and worse. So first thing is give yourself a break, give yourself some grace, stop thinking that you're the only one, and realize that this is natural and you're going to overcome it. So that's number one. Number two, and this is a really good way to turn things around in your mind, is to practice gratitude and think of things that you're grateful for. Just like I was in that car on my way home from that conference, and my wife said to me, tell me one thing that was positive that happened over the course of the past couple of days. That forced me to find something that I'm grateful for. That exercise of gratitude and finding something positive changes the mindset from being negative to now positivity. John Gordon, I don't know if you guys know who John Gordon is, but I've heard him say, he's great, by the way. If you don't know who he is, follow him, go get his books. You can't be blessed and stressed at the same time. Your mind, your brain actually can't compute two of those things at the same time. You're either worried and stressed, or you're positive and you're grateful. So gratitude is something that if you can start to practice and focus on, it'll pull your mind out of that negativity. And think of it this way. It's not just what am I grateful for, but think about, what do I have to look forward to? What's coming up? What am I excited about? Change your thoughts into a positive state of reflection and anticipation. And, it could be anything. It could be the smallest thing. But when you're grateful and you're excited about something, you're working towards something, you're looking forward to something, it really reverses this whole self-doubt, self-loathing thing. So number 2 is practice gratitude. Number 3 is you have to establish a growth mindset. And what that means is each day you have to practice thinking positive and not negative. Like you actually have to become a habitual, growth-oriented, positive thinker. And what that means is this is a verb. Like this is the actions that you take, meaning you want to become habitual about your mindset. You want to think about what you think about. You want to schedule times to think and practice. So for example, we talked about gratitude. Literally schedule time to practice gratitude. Schedule time to think about what you're looking forward to. A lot of people call it meditation. Let's just call it meditation. Some people call it prayer. Some people pray and meditate at the same time. I'm one of them. I have quiet reflection, quiet meditation time every day. And if you haven't and you're interested in learning more, go to episode 86 of this podcast, where I talk about my daily intention strategy. And I go all into what I do every morning to prime myself for the day. It's the same thing. You're actually forcing yourself into a positive mindset by intentionally scheduling time to reflect on things that you're grateful for, things that you're looking forward to. You set an intention strategy, and you put your mind on the right course. You're forcing your mind into the direction that you want it to go, as opposed to letting it, you're talking to yourself, right? Instead of listening to yourself. When you listen to yourself, that's when those thoughts of doubt and imposter syndrome creep in. You have to be proactive and take control of it. So number 3 is you have to develop a growth mindset, and you have to be active in pursuing that. Number 4, and this may not be something you expect, but I've heard this expression, go touch some grass. And what that means is, like, get outside, get away from your computer, get off social media, put your phone away, and go touch some grass. It's actually an expression when people spend too much time on social media, or if there's trolls or people that they tell them, you know what, go touch some grass, get off your computer, enough is enough. There's something really cathartic about nature, about getting away from electronics, about putting your phone away, and about just getting back to something non-technical just for a little bit. Take a walk outside, or just go get some air. Maybe go out and do some deep breathing exercises outside. But a lot of times when you're in a negative mindset, or if you're struggling, or if you feel this imposter syndrome coming, try to get outside and take a walk, or try to get outside and get some air and breathe. But definitely put your phone away for a few minutes. We are, unfortunately, as Americans, and maybe there's people all over the world that are listening to this, because we have listeners in like 90 countries. Everybody's in their phone. When you're in your phone, sometimes it puts you in a worse place. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So maybe put your phone down, maybe go out and touch some grass, go out and take a walk, go out and breathe the fresh air, and that'll definitely help you. So number 4 is to go out and touch some grass, put your phone away. Number 5, don't compare yourself to others. I call this comparisonitis. I didn't make that up. I heard it from somewhere. Somebody had said that. I think it's kind of funny, but a lot of people struggle and suffer with comparisonitis. And there's an actual quote, not an expression, but a quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. I actually thought that was biblical, but it's not biblical. It was something that Teddy Roosevelt said at one point in time. And this is so true. And I can tell you that one of the things that I went through when I was at that conference is comparisonitis. One of the probably the main reason I went into that downward spiral at that conference is I just kept looking around at everyone else. How many people were at the booth? They were laughing. Why are they all over there having a good time? How come they're not at my booth? And you start to compare yourself to others. You envy others, and you wind up in a situation where you just start beating yourself up because you don't have what others have. And I'm talking about a business scenario. This could be anything. This is, again, this whole social media thing puts even worse emphasis on this sort of thing, because people put up all of these images and all this fakeness and this pageantry that goes on, where you're seeing all this fictitious stuff. And it's especially damaging for younger folks, But all of us look and are like, wow, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that, or look at how great that is, and look how great this is. When you compare yourself to others, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So this is probably the most important, I think, of all of these 5 things. I think that comparisonitis is probably the most important thing. And I heard this quote: "It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you are not." It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you are not. And I just feel like we need to run our own race. What is it that you want for your life? What race are you running? Stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and what everybody else has going on. You got a lot going on. You got a lot to be grateful for. Focus on that. Think about that, because that is what matters, not what anybody else is doing. Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Who cares? And just understand that I'm with you on this. I'm actually doing this podcast for all of you, but I'm doing it for myself because I need to be reminded of this. I'm actually doing this because I need to remind myself as well. So this is something that, let's help each other out. Let's make a commitment to do better at this. Let's try to practice some of these best practices and tips to help pull us out of this. Because I got to tell you guys, I'm rooting for you. You know that. You know, I love doing these podcasts. I love helping you guys. I love seeing. I just came back from this conference, and I got to tell you, I was so excited to see all the people that are fans of this show, that are regular listeners to this show, that came up to me and introduced themselves and took pictures, and we hung out a little bit. And it makes all of this really worth it, because I know that it's helping, and I know that there are people that are getting a lot out of this. So I want to thank all of you for the support that you give me, and I'm grateful. Let's practice gratitude right now. I'm really grateful that I have this platform, but I'm even more grateful that I'm able to help you guys and that we're able to do this together. And if you're down on yourself right now, you're going through a tough time, just know I'm rooting for you, and I believe in you. And I think that you have a huge, huge year coming up. We're at the end of the year, starting a new year, and I think it's going to be your best year ever. So I'm hoping that this was helpful. If it was helpful, please share it with your friends or coworkers, and this isn't just, I know that this is an MSL podcast, but this is for anyone, not just MSLs, not just people in the pharmaceutical industry. So anyone you think get value out of this, please share it with them. And again, appreciate you guys, love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your year and a great year next year. Thanks again for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.